Now, for many people, many authors, the beginning of the Cold War comes with the Truman Doctrine. And there are some people who will say this is where Britain started the Cold War. You have to bear with me in this particular point of analysis. Britain was heavily indebted after the Second World War and couldn't fulfill all of its post-1945 obligations as a victor, not least of which because it was still trying to manage an empire and its orderly transition to a decolonised world. And Greece in particular presented a problem. Although this was a particular priority for Churchill, by 1947 under Attlee, Britain simply couldn't afford to put forces into Greece and Turkey to prevent communist infiltration or uprising. And they had to go to America and announce that they had a plan for withdrawal, given the number of other commitments they had around the globe. So this is from March of 1947. Now, the reason that some people say this is where Britain started the Cold War is that Truman had to get authorization from Congress to fund American forces to go into Greece and Turkey and try and stabilize the situation. And this is after a number of years of when the federal government was trying to cut down their expenditure. While we actually see something that's becoming a civil war in Greece, Britain said we can't support the Greek government financially, and we can't offer military assistance against the communists. And the problem in Washington was, how did the president justify this increase in expenditure to the capital, to the House of Representatives and to the Senate? He needed Congress to release more funds to help cover for Britain. Truman's approach was effectively to up the stakes. He didn't just go to Congress to say, please, may we have some additional funding. Truman's speech to Congress, and this was a joint session of both houses on the 12th of March 1947, can probably be summed up by one of the phrases he used in that speech. I believe we must assist free peoples to work out their destinies in their own ways. Now, that's quite an important phrase because it is an implicit restatement of the aims of the Atlantic Charter, which Churchill had signed with Roosevelt. But it's making it very clear that free peoples and working out their own destinies also implicitly meant Western-friendly capitalist economies against communist insurgents. So Truman emphasized self-determination, but only if that led to a capitalist democracy when he spoke to Congress. He wanted to prevent free nations being overthrown by outside forces, and principally communists acting with the support at that time of the Soviet Union, which is definitely the case when we are looking at what's happening in Greece and Turkey. That means there is a legacy of the Truman Doctrine. It was itself at odds with the American tradition of isolationism. Now, that might sound a little bit odd, considering America just partaken in the largest conflict the world had ever seen. But what we have with the Truman Doctrine was a policy of active engagement to defend long-term American interests. And that meant funding American forces around the world and supporting allies to allow a transition so that self-determination meant one very specific category of new nation coming out of empires. It meant supporting capitalist democracies. And this set an agenda for US action overseas in support of free nations that continues effectively today. And that means, even if it meant effectively supporting right-wing dictatorships, which the Americans did do, in Latin America particularly, their own backyard, as they periodically mention, all the way through to the present day. So it set an interventionist agenda that no one was really comfortable with, but did allow Truman to start putting American forces and funding overseas. And that has an implication for what happens in Vietnam over time.